Hello and welcome to our Goa adventures. Today we've had a very early start, setting off from our hotel about 5:30 in the morning so that we can go to Yana and Gokarna. We've just stopped off for breakfast along the way at a local sort of like roadside diner. Don't know if that would be the right word. And we've had some cheese masala doshis, which are like pancakes, but they're stuffed with like mashed potato and vegetables, and you tear bits off and eat it with your hand. It's quite nice actually. And some tea. Our next stop is Yana, where we have to do a little bit of a hike and climbing up some steps. It is already in the mid-30s in terms of temperature, quite high humidity, so I have a feeling that this hike may kill us. But stay tuned to see if we actually survive it. We are no longer in Goa. We're now in the state to the south, which is called Karnataka. And we're here to see Yana Rocks. And I can just start to see them appearing over the trees in front of us. It is. Yana is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the western Ghats of Karnataka, and it used to be part of a mountain range which is still in Madagascar. When we were researching going to Yana, we read that it took 30 to 45 minutes to hike there, and then you had to go up 400 steps. We found that in reality that wasn't the case. It took about 5 minutes to walk down the hill to get there, and maybe 15 to go back up, just with the heat and the humidity. There were steps, but there was nowhere near 400. It was a lot easier going than what we were led to believe. So we're currently climbing the steps at the Yana rock outcrops to go into the cave to see the linga. And we're at the point where there's two main outcrops, one representing the male, which is this one representing the female, which is over in the distance there. You're not allowed to fly a drone here, which we discovered by getting told off by the local state park commission. There is a sign that says you're not allowed to fly the drone, but it's not until you actually come into the temple itself. There's nothing on the outside, so we thought we were okay to fly it, but we weren't. Oh, losing my breath going up these steps. Because of what we'd read about the walk, we changed our shoes into trainers to walk down, but we probably didn't need to. Flip-flops or Crocs would have been fine. When you get to the temple part to walk through the cave itself, you have to take your shoes off anyway. Your feet get absolutely filthy as well. Both me and my camera woman ended up discarding socks because washing your feet at the end and then stepping back onto the dirty ground, it just meant your socks got so muddy. The socks did come in handy, however, for Clara. She had a cut on her foot, so she ended up walking around with one of her mummy socks on her feet. There were lots of the formations throughout the region, however we went to the main two, the largest two. One is considered male and one is considered female. The male one, if you stand in the right spot, you're supposed to be able to see the face of Shiva. The temple itself was closed when we went, but we could still walk up and through the cave, so we didn't get to see the linga. Inside the cave, there were lots of bats, however it didn't have a typical bat cave smell. The bats were small fruit bats, they weren't the large flying foxes, and the best place to see them was near the end as you come out of the cave. There was a bin on a corner, and then if you looked up past the bin to the ceiling of the cave at that point, you could just see hundreds of bats clinging upside down to the ceiling. There is a one-way system through the cave, so when you get to the exit, there will only be one. When you leave the cave, if you look up to the right, you'll see lots of honeycombs clinging at the side of the cliffs and honeybees flying around. These are protected and people aren't even allowed to extract the honey from the honeycomb. When we first got there, we tried to fly our drone, but we got told off by someone from the State Forestry Department, and this was because of those bees and the honeycombs. There was a small shop in the temple that sold drinks and snacks, and another one near the entrance. There were porta potty style loos near the entrance, but if you walked 5 minutes further down the road away from the entrance, there were proper toilets which were larger and cleaner. However, they were also squat toilets. As well as the bats and the bees, we also saw monkeys and an oriental rat snake, which we are told is a favoured snack of the king cobra. Once we left Yana, we headed to Gokarna, which translates as the cow's ear. Hindus make pilgrimages to Gokarna from hundreds of miles away. Quite often this is for the death ceremony. And we were introduced to several families by our guide who were there for that ceremony in particular. We walked through the Brahmin quarter, and the Brahmin look after all of the local temples. And when pilgrims come to the area from hundreds of miles away, they'll also look after the pilgrims in the house and house them and feed them. However, they don't do this for free. The pilgrims do pay a price for doing this. We saw some pilgrims having dinner from banana leaves in one of the Brahmin homes. We did go to several temples whilst we were in Gokarna. However, as foreigners, we were only allowed the outsides of the temples. You weren't allowed to go into any of the inner sanctums unless you were Hindu. A lot of Gokarna feels very authentic. You see cows walking through the streets, a lot of traditional dress. There are points where you can see sort of like a hippie vibe of Western culture with some of the souvenir shops that sell sort of like crocheted bikinis and Bob Marley themed souvenirs that were pot paraphernalia. But this was to a minimum and to a much lesser extent than some of the other towns that have had that vibe that we've been to in the past, such as Ubud or places like that. It was very much kept to a minimum. The cows that were everywhere, they were literally everywhere. They were getting to some spaces and you'd think, how did that cow even get there? There was one in a cage for a linker, and I don't know how it managed to get itself in and turn around so its head was poking out the door. Fascinating. One of the temples, the main temple, had a massive, huge white bull. It was enormous, probably the biggest bull that I've ever seen. And whilst we were walking around the streets, there was a traffic jam at one point where there was a tuk-tuk and a bull having a disagreement about who had right of way down the street, with the tuk-tuk blasting its horn and the bull making some rather angry sounds back at the tuk-tuk as well. So it was quite interesting seeing some of the sights. One of the things that the town has is a giant chariot that's supposed to be 1,000 years old. This is used only once a year in certain ceremonies, and whenever it is used, there has to be a very large police presence on the street because it is seen as a very favourable, honourable death if pilgrims who've gone to the town, their holy town, die in the town. So a lot of the pilgrims will try and throw themselves under the wheel of the chariot. There was a small chariot in the street which we saw, and a large one that was parked up, and it's the large one that has the issue. The thing must weigh hundreds of tons. The wheels themselves were probably taller than I am, so you can see why it would be fatal if you were to throw yourself underneath it. So the police have to be out in force to try and stop that from happening. Hindus make pilgrimages to Gokarna from hundreds of miles away. Quite often this is for the death ceremony. One of the main places you visit is the lake in the centre of town. It's a man-made lake, and they'll perform a cleansing ritual where they'll burn clothes and shave their heads and make offerings and then bathe in the waters. There are lots of market stalls. Some of them sell herbs, spices, things like that. We walked past the spice one that smelled absolutely divine. There are a lot that will sell blessings and offerings for use inside of the temples as well. There were also local tribes ladies. We only saw ladies from the tribes who had put together sort of like on banana leaves offerings of fruit and flowers that they'd made to look all pretty, that they were selling on the way into the temples as well. After Gokarna, we headed to Kudal Beach, where we went to a beach shack for lunch, and we ordered far too much food. We had curries, spiced potato, sandwiches, chips, hash browns in India. They're not what we know as hash browns in England, which the children learned the hard way when they ordered sunny side up eggs with hash browns, and then a bowl of spiced potatoes came out. But it was delicious, and we tried to work our way through as much of it as we can, but we ordered far too much just for the four of us. Our last stop of the day was Cabo de Rama Fort, which offers panoramic views of the Arabian Sea. It seems like the fort would be a great spot for sunset, and as we were leaving, I think a lot of people were arriving just for that. If you do visit the fort, one of the things they'll ask for on entry is ID. However, they will accept photo ID, and luckily I had a photo of my passport on my phone, so we were able to enter. But if you do plan on going, make sure you have at least a photo of some form of ID with you. It was originally built by the Portuguese, and it has been used as a fort and a prison, but it is currently in ruins. There's lots of trees, like banyan trees and mango trees throughout the fort, and it also has a church in the centre of it as well. The British also held the fort at one point as well. As you walk around the edge of the fort, if you head downhill towards the sea, there is also a large, almost like basin that collects the monsoon water, and throughout most of the year that would have supplied water to the fort. However, through the heat of the summer, which we're currently in India, it does dry up, and it was dry when we were there. The fort still has some of its cannons in place around the walls, and the kids really liked seeing them as well. We also saw monkeys when we explored the fort. They were mainly on the trees outside of the walls. They were grey langur monkeys, and they were different to the monkeys that we've seen elsewhere in the likes of Bali and Cambodia. And when we've seen monkeys on our travels, they were very shy and ran away from us, but hopefully I've got one or two good photos of them anyway. Just like to say thank you to Lawrence, our guide for the day, and Yasia, our driver. The trip was booked through Emails and Tours by Emma Lamston, and we'll leave a link to the Facebook group for that in the description below. So as you can probably tell, that's me back at the hotel now. It's been a long day. We set off at 5:30 in the morning, and we didn't get back until after 7 o'clock at night. But it's been so fascinating learning about some of the history with the fort, learning about some of the culture and religion in the likes of Gokarna. So it's been an absolutely amazing day to spend outside of South Goa. With this one, it's been in Karnataka. So if you have enjoyed our video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. It helps us, and if you really like the video, maybe give it a thumbs up as well. And join us next time when we will be hopefully looking for some waterfalls. Thank you for watching. Bye now.